The tensions just beneath the surface begin to boil over as Rick's attempts to stop Maggie are impeded on many sides. Michonne is having some difficulty living a normal life, and the Saviors discover the Oceansiders have been behind the killings. Plus, Negan just wants to see his bat. It's The Walking Dead, Season 9, Episode 4, The Obliged. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of The Walking Dead. So yes, of course, lots of spoilers ahead. Alright, the big countdown has begun. There's only one more episode with Rick Grimes in it, and we get a lot of that setup, obviously, in this episode. But I'm going to start things off a little differently than I normally do. This week, we are going to start off with our Scene of the Week for this week. And yes, technically, it's a montage of the week, I guess. But it is our opening sequence with Michonne. I think it says so much inside this tiny little bit, and it's a great kind of play on both what many of the characters are dealing with and, of course, Rick himself. Because last week we got to see Morning with Rick, and Rick going through his sort of morning patterns and such, and checking out Alexandria and playing with the kids and breakfast and everything like that. Here it's Morning with Michonne, and a little bit of a slightly different twist. Yes, she's getting up, she's having breakfast with Judith, she's trying to deal with the things around Alexandria, maybe not so successfully or happy as Rick has been dealing with them. But that's just the level of frustration. I love how it starts off with a little jaunty, almost cheesy little music of yeah, it's daytime and we're doing stuff. And then, boom, the music stops as she wakes in the middle of the night with those complete frustrations. Having to go out and exercise her own personal demons, taking out walkers with her katana. It is a beautiful just microcosmic image of what Michonne is really going through. That she is trying to live this normal life, trying to build this new world, and yet she has that need also to exercise that other half of herself, of going out and taking out walkers, the warrior within. And it's her working this balance of family, leader, and warrior, of peace and trouble all at once. I think it's just so beautifully encapsulated in this sequence. And it plays into a lot of her scenes with Negan later on throughout the episode, who in a way is identifying with Michonne to a certain extent, or pressing buttons as he is very good at doing, but recognizing within her that duality. That peace is not who she is, that she is a warrior and has to be able to exercise those parts of her. It's also a great kind of comparative, I think, to many of the other characters that we have in the show. Daryl, Carol, even Rick to a certain extent, but our big three here, Michonne, Daryl, Carol, Maggie a little bit, these are all warriors that are having difficulty transitioning into this time of peace. Daryl isn't really happy leaving the Saviors there. Carol's trying to go in and deal with that too, but she can't just, settle down with Ezekiel, who wants her there so much. She has to kind of keep that active participation going. In fact, we did have that little conversation between Rick and Carol about the ability to change, and that, seeing Carol and what she has gone through, that inspires Rick. To an extent that's true, but we also see with everything else with Carol is she is also a warrior and maybe not totally comfortable living in this new peaceful world. I also think that in a way it's kind of a sign, a nod for us, the audience, as well, because as much as it is interesting to see the show transition into a new world, try to build a future, that idea of peace, of moving on, what the first few seasons have been. we are also, in a way, really wanting them to just get back and fight walkers. Just, yeah, the peace stuff, that's fine. When you getting back? When you doing the fighting? When does the adventuring happen? When is that type of drama and sweatiness and everything going on? So this whole sequence, again, it shows what Michonne's going through. It's a larger reference to what many of our other favorite characters are going through, and it's kind of what we, the audience, is going through as well. Peace is nice, building a new world is great, but man, every night, yeah, you just got to go out and take out some zombies. Walkers. Oh, and I guess since we brought up Negan, might as well jump right in with him. Hunger strike? No. Negan just wants a little company. Just wants someone to talk to. I mean, Rick's been gone building a bridge. He doesn't have his morning conversations with Rick there. Maybe that's what he needs. It's got to be lonely living in a little basement. Let's face it. Negan's lonely. All he wants is Lucille. His bat. And that's kind of weird, I have to say. I mean, it was a great little... I love the sequence. There's a lot of tension. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is amazing. I love the fact that we don't really see him. He is constantly in shadow. You know, we get the little beard. We get these little half images. But we never get a real full glimpse of... a full shot of Negan in this. He is a man living in shadows, living in darkness, living on the side there. Which I think is very nicely portrayed in this episode. And yeah, I think he's lonely. He wants someone to talk to. And he does see a common soul in with Michonne. I love the idea of that we have lost people because not having them here makes us stronger. You know, we are less weak without them. It's a very dark idea. But in a way, it's kind of poignant. And again, that is kind of a little connection between Negan and Michonne. I mean, seeing a little bit more of what's happening with Negan, with his life, what Lucille's fate was if she died with cancer. That's what used to happen to people before the walkers and the dead roamed the earth. People just died of cancer. But she would not be the type of person that could live in this world. Negan couldn't have been the survivor he was with her here. He would have put all of his effort in protecting her. So now, without her around, he is less weak. And a strong hit with Michonne there, reflecting back with Andre. In a way, she had to kind of force and recognize that idea. She is stronger without him. As soon as he was gone, she lost that bit of humanity. I mean, Michonne was the person walking around with walkers on chains with no arms, and their jaws and teeth were moved and everything, so they couldn't attack her, but could be her defense against the walkers around her. I mean, that's seriously badass. That is total survivor warrior mode. And with Andre around, she wouldn't have done that. So, again, it's a very dark tale. It's a very dark point, but I think Negan is quite correct in that. However, what it coming down to is that his attempts to sort of manipulate and get in under Michonne's skin is a ploy to see Lucille his bat. And how much he broke down when Michonne told him that, I don't have it, it's still out there. It was just, left out in the field? I don't know. I think maybe one of the Saviors had to have picked that up. I don't think it's just going to be laying out there. I'm guessing that is being kept by someone somewhere. But even that idea that is gone, that it has been cast aside, that it may be lost, such a strong hit to Negan. I mean, we know the attachment that he had to it. When Rick threatened to burn it, I mean, he totally had lost it. He identifies his wife within this bat so much. It's just, I don't know. I'm a little emotional. I kind of feel for him in a way, but it's also just a sign of, I don't know, some mental break going on there with Negan. I mean, it's just named Lucille. It's I don't know. Maybe his wife gave it to him, and that's where it all came from and such. But it's just, yeah, kind of an interesting turn with Negan there. A real weak part of him was sort of exposed, is how much he definitely needs his bat. Jed just doesn't learn, does he? He gets stabbed by Carol and he really thinks that he can go back out after her. He does not understand the powerhouse that is Carol. And it's definitely, I think, going to finally cost him at this point. Okay, so yeah, Jed gets a gun, leads the Saviors up to try and get the arms from Carol. Discovers, of course, that the Oceansiders are the ones behind the missing Saviors, that they have been killing the Saviors, and therefore they are looking to reignite war. They're looking to go to battle. So that is not an excellent standoff to be. However, considering that Jed was the only one with a gun there and pretty much all the rest of the Kingdom Warriors and company were armed, I don't think that battle's actually going to last that long. Very curious to see how this all ends up playing out. But still, just a perfect sign. I mean, one, we're seeing the dangers. Of course, the Saviors aren't entirely stupid, and they have a right, in a way, to be upset. A deal has been made that you know, the war is over and we're letting bygones be bygones. We're trying to move forward. Now, not all the Saviors are agreeing with that, and that is causing, of course, a bit of that conflict here. But this is where the difficulties that Rick and Daryl start talking about, which we'll get to in a minute, sort of have pointed out. Without this peace behind them, all of these troubles, all of these beliefs start to boil over. And now that Maggie has killed Gregory, showing the Oceansiders another way, their revenge on the Saviors means now that the Saviors don't feel safe and they're going to want to fight and battle back. So all of this piece is about to, well, fall apart. And in fact, we can see that it does, or we hear that it does for the most part. However, again, Carol, even straight up with a gun to her face, putting her own gun down, just pulling Jed in, just, yeah, go ahead, grab the keys, just get a little closer, make that one step, and kick, wham, take out the knee, and it's going to be all over with right there. I don't think Jed's going to survive that particular battle. I'm hoping Carol's all right, but she's kind of unkillable. All right, and of course, Maggie and Rick and Daryl and all of that. So yeah, Maggie's made the choice. I'm curious what she wants to crowbar with. Is she going to use that to pry open the jail cell? Is that, I mean, I don't really see her as a weapon with that, as more of a gun. Does she want to march Negan out of the jail and kill him elsewhere? She doesn't just seem to want to go in and just shoot him. It doesn't really seem to be her plan. She wants revenge, and that's got to be a little more visceral than just shooting someone inside of a jail cell. So that's probably what she's going with the crowbar with. Nice brief discussion there with Jesus, really talking about, you know, as time goes on, as he's seeing the world a little differently here. Love the comment about Rick. You know, he was standing against Rick because Rick made a choice that he didn't have the right to make. He made an emotional choice. He made a quick choice that wasn't really his right to make. Now he is concerned that Maggie is, in a way, doing that same thing. Quickly, emotionally, making a decision that perhaps she doesn't totally have the right to make. And in that sense of the consequences that are going to play out. And we do start to see that again in here because of Gregory's death leading to the Oceansiders and the killing of the Saviors. Now we have the Saviors that are going to battle there with Carol and company. These are the consequences that are only going to increase with Maggie going and killing Negan as an act of revenge, especially this far down the road. So I think that's sort of where Jesus is coming from. But, of course, Maggie's not really interested in listening. Love Jerry. I mean, I love Jerry anyway. But I love Jerry coming up and giving Rick the info. Said that Maggie is out heading to Alexandria, and you know what that means. That's the only information I have. Was sort of perfect. But the idea of Rick trying to, you know, with the distance and everything, that there's got to be relays, and he's calling the Alexandria relay to stop Maggie. And the girl's just like, yeah, okay, no problem, gonna hang that up. Shh. Well, I think Maggie's done with talking. Shh. Back to my magazine. It's just, it goes to show just how many forces are lining up against Rick and how many people really want to see Negan dead. I think. So I love that little moment. It was quick, it was minor, but it was so cold. Maggie's done with talking. And then Daryl stepping up. Hey, man, I'll give you a ride. No problem. We'll get there faster. Again, it's just all of these forces going to impede Rick, to allow Maggie to finish doing her thing, which I guess that's what we're going to be catching up next week. But this leads, of course, to the big showdown between, well, not big, not so much of a showdown, encounter in different set of differences between Rick and Daryl. Okay, I appreciate actually a lot of the conversation that we had between the two of them. Once they got down into the pit, yeah, they're going to have a difference of opinion, but once they get down in the pit and they have that bit of discussion, I think they hit a lot of interesting points. Again, how Rick is talking about that this keeping Negan alive is what's allowing this peace. It's what's allowing things to go forward. If you kill him, then all these people that died have died in vain. Him seeing that the war would continue, that this would spark a rebellion and just send things back to where they are. And then, of course, an emotional bit that Carl would have died for nothing. And I can see that with Rick. But I love Daryl's points back to him. So much of that, you know, that Rick has this image, this vision, but he is going on alone, that he is not checking with the people that he has battled for, that these people around him, Daryl, Michonne, Maggie, Carol, all of those that have been with him for so long, they would back him. They would follow him if he just wanted to. I mean, Daryl's sort of breakdown there is that, man, I would die for you. I would die for Carl. It's not the battle is not between Daryl and Rick. It's a difference between ideals and approaches, and the fact that Daryl and company feel like they weren't asked, that they were just told to accept these things, and that doesn't show that partnership, that togetherness. And that's sort of what I was referring to back with that scene with Michonne going out to having to kill as she's a warrior. These people are warriors as well. They have battled for so long, and now they're trying to live in this new life, in this new way that they haven't really been asked to do. They've just been sort of pushed into following. And that when Daryl brought up Glenn, that without Glenn you would be dead and you wouldn't have seen your wife or your son, and you wouldn't have met up and you wouldn't have met any of these people. I mean, it's just, there was so much great power and back and forth. And again, it wasn't animosity that was fueling it. It was frustration with two people that had been going in different directions that still, let's say it, that still love each other, that are still brothers or still family. And I think that whole ending of that sequence when they finally climbed out and Rick's reaching back down there and he's like, brother, grab my hand. Yeah, there's a level of cheese to it, but it still shows that despite all of their differences, despite their difference of opinions, despite their arguments, they are still family. They are still brothers that will still fight and die for each other. So I really actually appreciated how that was handled. I was concerned that it was just going to degrade into this battle back and forth and yelling and so on, but it didn't. It really became more of a discussion, more of a frustrated reaching out. What was he said? I never asked any of you to follow me. Yes, but maybe you should have. In the sense of it being together, that we are all in an agreement as opposed to just kind of doing what they were doing. And maybe they were following in the sense of giving Rick their trust, but not feeling that trust was given back to them, which is, I believe, specifically what Daryl had said. It was a lot better handled than I was afraid that it was going to. I really enjoyed that whole sequence. The only question I have is, where the hell did that hole come from? That was an excavated hole. I mean, I thought that it was like a walker pit intentionally dug maybe to stop some of the herds, and yeah, it started sort of pulling people in, but Daryl didn't know anything about it. I love that Rick asked, is this you too? Yeah, okay, yeah, I came down here with a little shovel and dug this 20-foot deep pit all by myself with a group. Now, it's like an excavator you needed for that. So, they don't have one of those, but where the hell did this hole come from? rather convenient that it was right where they stopped. Sure, a little cheesy, but if it was done beforehand, shouldn't it be a little more weathered? Leaves inside? I mean, that's a fresh pit, so I kind of hope they're going to deal back with this, because otherwise this seems almost too convenient of a setting to be there. Because like I said, there's no leaves in there. This is a freshly dug hole. Who the hell did it? Okay, and our ending, our transition for next week. Okay, so the boys get out of the hole. Rick grabs the horse that's there, is going to... Nice, convenient. Is going to try and lead this herd away. I don't know if that's Cordelia or Tybalt. But I guess he runs into the other one. And assuming that Daryl is he going back to try and stop Maggie? Did they hit that agreement? I was assuming that he's going to go back to where the gunshots were going and try and find out what had happened, check on with Carol and stuff like that. I guess that's what I'm guessing. They didn't really say or imply where Daryl was heading off, but I would assume that's what he would check out. But the real question I have is, well, it's not so much of a question, it's more of a comment, is, what the hell? What the hell, Rick? Rick is going to fall off of a horse conveniently onto some rebar to get himself impaled? I mean, you would think that the horses at this point have been trained not to panic so much around walkers. I mean, you have horses that are trained to go into battle and war and things like that. With all the walkers around, I mean, the horses have to have a certain level of training, I would thought. But also, it's not even like there's a little bit of debris on the side of the road and that's where Rick falls off? Come on! I mean, I don't know. That really frustrated me. Then he passes out as the walkers come in, so... What's going to be next week's episode? Is this just all fever dream in the moments before the walkers come up on him? Or is he going to suddenly wake up again while they're 3 or 4 feet away and pull himself off the rebar and then get on the horse and lead the walkers probably to the bridge, which he didn't want to allow to be destroyed for these walkers? Now he's going to have to see that's a sacrifice he's going to have to make. And then the rest of the episode's sort of a fever dream of him with this, or... is this slowly as he dies and turns into a walker himself? Where are they going with this? I mean, okay, I'm going to appreciate it. Seems like it's going to be a flashback episode. It's going to deal and connect with a lot of people. We'll get to see Shane and some old locations and things again. It's cool, I guess. But really, just as a way for Rick Grimes to go out, falling off a damn horse and impaling himself on some rebar at the side of the road, It just seems weak, man. I'm really not liking that particular choice. It's not the way I would expect this character to go out. Well, I mean, I guess he's not out yet, but I don't know. It makes me a little worried. It's probably going to be an emotional episode next week. It's probably going to be cool, I guess, but I don't like this particular choice of how they're getting there. All right, just a couple of small things. One, our herd names, Tybalt and Cordelia. As Eugene said, they came from the big book. That big book being the works of Shakespeare. Tybalt being the antagonist in Romeo and Juliet. Cordelia being the youngest daughter of King Lear. What else the connections are, not entirely sure. Maybe it's kind of like Hurricanes. He was just picking names out of a hat, and these were the latest ones that he got to. The only one connection I can definitely make between the two, between both King Lear and Romeo and Juliet, they're both tragedies. It means the main characters die at the end. It's the difference between comedy and tragedy. Comedies, characters live. Tragedies, they die. It was simple back then. So yeah, I guess maybe naming herds after characters in tragedies, that would probably make a little bit more sense. But yeah, just sort of appreciated the, Shakespearean callback there. Oh, and speaking of Eugene, great to see him. I love that little scene between him and Rick also. You know how Eugene's very apologetic that he messed up, that he couldn't be any better at getting the bridge done, maybe if he read more. And Rick reaching out, tell him, no, man, give yourself some credit. You're more than someone that just read books. Again, we're having conversations that happen between characters before someone dies. This always happens. But it was nice to see. Also, considering that Eugene was kind of on the savior side for a short period before coming back. I mean, he did sabotage all the guns they blew up in the savior's face, which I guess is a good way to get back into someone's graces. I like that they have sort of put that water under the bridge. Sorry, couldn't help it. Oh, and also in that conversation between Rick and Daryl in the pit, that point on Negan, you know, who is Negan? It's keeping him alive there. What does he represent? Is he a symbol that there is a different tomorrow that is available to us? Or does he represent hope for return to the old ways? Just, you know, again, an interesting varying viewpoints between two people that care for each other, that are looking for a better world, but are just concerned about the road to get there. And Lucille not just making an impression with Negan there, or the desire of. I love the sort of repetitions we have with this bat, specifically from Michonne's standpoint, when she is fighting the walkers off, and she loses the sword after seeing what looks like a lynching. You can see how she would react strongly with that. I was wondering if that was like one of the saviors that were left up from the Oceansiders, and that's the response, because otherwise, yeah, very much a lynching image right there. Black men being hung off a tree and all of that. But how when she loses her katana and ends up picking up the bat, that's, our reference to Lucille, who I'm sure we're going to be seeing. So yes, she sees taking out walkers with a bat, does not like that image, drops it down, and then reading the story later on to little Judith there, and gets to the page with the bat. A lot of symbolism, which means we're going to be seeing Lucille again real soon. Oh, and I also love that scene where Michonne is trying to push off Negan's words, and she's trying to work at her desk, and we keep getting little shots of the katana in the background there, or really in the foreground, and her in the background, and it's all just out of focus as we're looking at her. Just that was, again, sort of a perfect image of the calling of the warrior, of her weapon of battle, that she's trying to push away and keep back into the shadows and behind her, and yet is ever present. I love that shot. Oh, and Jadis, Anne, and Father Gabriel. Yeah, what is Jadis's plan? Was she trying to turn Father Gabriel there? Is that was with the walkers, or was it a tease? I mean, I loved it. It was a powerful scene. I love Father Gabriel reaching out and talking about it was his own weakness that led to this point, that he should have been strong enough, should have been there for, that he forgives her. I mean, again, this is some powerful movement from Father Gabriel's point. I loved seeing that. And kind of sad for him that she feels that, you know, what is it? To go fast, you got to travel alone. To go far, you got to travel together. She's got to go fast. It's sad. She's off. She's on her own. We'll see her again, I'm sure. But I still want to know, what is the plan with the walker? What was that all about? She could have just turned him at any point. Didn't need to wake him up. Was to see how he reacted, to see how he would turn, how long it would take. I mean, I don't get what her goal is there. And I really hope at some point we get that clarified. All right, so I think that is going to be it. So yes, next week is Rick Grimes' final episode, the fever dream as he travels and tries to get the herds of walkers away from the communities, I guess, I'm hoping. Or it's just as he's all happening as he's dying there impaled on the side of the road. Really don't like that choice. It really kind of frustrates me. But that's going to be it for us. Thank you so much for joining me here. And if you like this review, go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, you know where to put them, down in the section below. Still, let me know, what do you think Rick Grimes' final words are going to be? Yeah, I don't know, whatever you guys' thoughts. Throw those down in the section below. Also, your ideas about the pit. Where did that come from? Let me know what you guys think. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you're not. Quick and easy. One button press right here, and we'll throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here, and you can check those out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.